Hi students, Dr. Cohen here. I am in Florida at the Southern Gerontological Society's annual meeting, and I am sending you this Zoom update for this week. So I have some announcements. First of all, please do check the grade book and make sure that everything that you think should be graded a certain way is graded a certain way. Especially take a look at the perusal readings. I've updated those. If there was any discrepancy between what was in the perusal gradebook and what was on folio, I gave you the higher of the two grades. So have a look at that, the gradebook in total, and then also specifically the perusals. Email me any questions that you might have. Also, I did complete the grading of your outlines, and for most, if not all of you, you have a solid start to write your final paper. Even if you got a perfect grade on the outline, make sure you go in and look in the Dropbox for my comments, because I wrote comments to everyone. And so I want to make sure that you see those. For instance, some folks, the APA formatting was not correct in the citations, and there were some other things that didn't lose you any points for the outline, but are going to become very important with your final paper. And speaking of final paper, I'm just going to go ahead and just go over it. It's, let me screen share that. Let's see. Okay, so for the final paper should be kind of a culmination of what you've already done. So between the several assignments that you've had, including the annotated bibliography and especially the outline, so this should just flow from all of that. And the feedback that I've given you all along hopefully will help you to have an excellent final paper. That's always my goal. The paper needs to be 3 pages long. Make sure that you read through the entire assignment description before you start your writing. It's okay if you're a little bit over 3 pages, but you don't want to be too much more than that. And that it's 3 pages of content excluding your reference list. Okay. It should be written in 12-point Times New Roman font or an equivalent with a 1-inch margin. And I say that because sometimes people will increase the margin or increase the font size in order to make it to the 3 pages. Please don't do that. Let's see. When I talk about using APA format, that is just specifically for the in-text citations and the reference list. You don't need to, for instance, some formats for APA say you need to write an abstract or have a cover page. It's up to you if you want to include those things, but that's not what matters to me. What matters to me is that you use APA formatting for the citations and the bibliography. Okay. Let's see, no quotes over 39 words. Sometimes people write papers and it's just quote after quote after quote. And then I ask myself, well, who really wrote that paper? So you want to keep your quotes to a minimum, no more than 1 quote per page. So for a 3-page paper, you better have only 3 quotes. Now that does not mean that you're not drawing from the literature for your paper. It means that you need to learn how to paraphrase, which one clue for that is you can read what it is you want to paraphrase, read it to yourself, and then put the text away that you're reading and try and just write what you remember of what you read in your own words. Or you can summarize. Summaries are good for, if there's several different points that an article is making, you summarize those. You don't want to quote or paraphrase or summarize anything from the literature review. These articles are about their research. That's literature review is somebody else's summary of other people's work. So never cite or use information from the literature review. My suggestion is that you look at either the findings or the discussion section of a journal article, and that's where you're going to pull from, because that's where they're talking about their results. So let me be clear too, several people have used things like books or websites in other sections as you've written your outline or your annotated bibliography. It's fine to pull from those sources. You want to use, and we're going to talk about a minimum criteria for that, you want to use peer-reviewed sources for the majority of the paper, but certainly like things like definitions, or if you're looking for things like, you might want to go to the Census Bureau site for some overview demographics, those kinds of things. That's fine. Just make sure that you have the minimum number of journal articles for your paper. Let's see. Remember that if something is not general knowledge, you need to cite it. Often people will do really well at citing quotes, but then they'll put something in there, and sometimes it's like statistics and stuff. And let's be honest, we don't have those kinds of pieces of information in our heads. So if it's not general knowledge, you make sure you cite the source. If you're taking multiple things in sequential order from the same source, it's okay to cite, you know, maybe the beginning and then at the end. So you don't need to have a citation at the end of every sentence, but you might say, cite the first sentence and then say something like, the authors also found this other thing, right? So then I know it's connected to that first citation, okay? Let's see, there is a source, Purdue OWL's website, which you can link to for some really good resources and help. Often people use citation generators. I don't mind you using those, but you need to understand APA format because sometimes those citation generators make mistakes. The one I've seen most often is like the title is in all caps or something like that. Again, go back to my notes and comments on both your annotated bibliography and your outline, because I gave you feedback on the citation format there. So that'll help you. Let's see, if you need additional help, we have a wonderful writing center. I believe you can still do everything that you do with them electronically. So you can email them the paper, you can email them, you know, your draft of your paper, email them the assignment overview. Okay. So let's have a look at the grading rubric. And before you write anything, take some time to read through the rubric. This is what I look at when I'm reading your papers and I'm grading your papers. So your introduction should include the research question, which you all have them, a summary of the information contained in the paper. So what are your subtopics? Name them in the introduction. And you all should have had some practice with this already with your outline. So hopefully, for most of you, you're just copying over your introduction from your outline into your paper. Okay. The body of the text should contain at least 3 subtopics, which hopefully, because you did your outline, you've got those already. The subtopics and how they address the research question. And then the conclusion is a summary of all the information that you found, and then how you would answer your research question. Again, most of you did a really good job in your outline. You should just be able to pull, okay, for these topics, here's how it addressed my research question. I'm looking for logic, which means that there's a clear connection between the literature that you presented and your research question. Again, there may be some places where you're doing definitions, that kind of thing, but for the most part, your whole paper should really focus on how you answer your research question by pulling from the literature. Information, excuse me, in the paper is clearly derived from the literature, and no opinions of the author are presented. This is important. You may have become interested in this particular research question because of things in your personal life, but I don't want to read about that in your paper. So I don't want to know about your personal experiences, and I don't want to know about your opinions. I just want to know what the what the literature tells you about your question. And a lot of people make this mistake and talk about experiences they've had. I honor those experiences. They are not relevant to a research paper. Also, mechanical errors. If you write in a Word document, they are really good these days at underlining spelling errors in red, underlining potential grammatic errors in blue, take a look at that. That will be very helpful to you. The other thing that I strongly recommend is read your paper out loud to yourself. I think a lot of the grammatical errors can be caught just by reading it out loud. But this will count against you if you have more than 3 errors in the paper. Original sources are used. There are no sources that are cited in the literature review that are not in the document, and vice versa. So I do check that. So if you put a reference in the list, but then you never cite it in the paper, you lose points for that. And if you do proper APA citations, it's easy for me. I just search by the author's first author's last name, so it's easy. I can look and see. So both if it's in the body of the paper, it should be in the citation list. If it's in the citation list, it should be in the body of the paper. So make sure that you check that. No quotes over 39 words. I've discussed that already. 1 quote per page. Summarized and paraphrased information is cited, so don't just cite your quotes. And that all of the information that comes from the literature is properly cited. 5 scholarly sources published within the past 5 years. Now, again, you're welcome to use other sources. You can use books, you can use websites. You'll need to cite those. But at a minimum, I'm going to be looking for at least 5 scholarly works within the last 5 years for the paper. And then your bibliography should be in APA format. And I want to say it's APA. Some folks in their outline used other formatting like ASA and that kind of thing. You'll lose points for doing that. And I know it seems like a I don't know, but this is the format system that I use, the American Psychological Society. So please use that in your reference list, and you'll lose some points if you don't have that. So that's that. I wrote some notes, so I just want to go over them. Use the literature and not your opinions or your experience in your paper. Check the citation formatting, even if you use the citation generator. Carefully read the grading rubric before you write your paper, and cite anything that is not common knowledge. So quotes, summaries, paraphrasing. I wish you all well with your final paper. I'm really excited to read these. You have some wonderful topics that I'm really looking forward to seeing how you pull it all together. It's been a lot of pieces, a lot of parts of the process, and hopefully all of those have helped you to make the writing of your final paper easier. I will, I should say too, this part, the paper is due on the 12th. So you have 4 days to get it in. Thank you all, and do email me with any questions, because even though I'm at a conference, I will be checking my emails. Bye now.